Good evening, I'm Hafiz Marzukhi. Here are the top stories for tonight. Our neighbours across ASEAN take centre stage. First, Thai court sacks PM Paetongtarn Shinawatra for ethics violation, and Indonesian students vow more protests after one killed in Jakarta demonstration. That and more coming up on AWANI International. Thailand's Constitutional Court has removed suspended Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra from office after finding her guilty of ethical misconduct over a controversial phone call with Cambodia's former leader Hun Sen. The ruling makes Paetongtarn the fifth Prime Minister to be stripped of office by Thai judges since 2008 and plunges the kingdom into another political uncertainty and potentially a snap election. The court ruled the 39-year-old breached ethical standards over the phone call meant to prevent a border conflict from escalating. The court said Paetongtarn had put her personal interests over those of the nation and damaged the country's reputation. With that decision, the Thai parliament is now tasked with electing a new prime minister, though no timeline has been set. Paetongtarn admitted her mistake, saying she sought to prevent war rather than undermine national interests. In a press conference, she said the court's verdict marked a change in Thai politics and required cooperation from all political sides. Deputy Prime Minister Phumtham Wechayachai and the cabinet will serve as caretakers until a new leader is chosen. According to reports, the Pure Thai Party named 77-year-old former Justice Minister Chai Kasem Nitisiri as prime ministerial candidate. Meanwhile, the leader of Thailand's main opposition, People's Party, said that the next Prime Minister must dissolve Parliament within 4 months. Natapong Ruengpanjawut said that the party would not join any government but could support others forming an administration under conditions. Tensions are escalating in Jakarta as public anger over a protest-related death fuels unrest across the city. 21-year-old delivery rider Afan Kurniawan was struck by an armoured police vehicle on Thursday during clashes near Parliament. The wider protests, initially sparked by public anger over lawmakers' pay and economic issues, have now escalated into outrage over police violence and broader criticism of President Prabowo Subianto's government. Hundreds of motorcycle drivers joined students taking to the streets to attend Kurniawan's funeral. President Prabowo Subianto, in a recorded video, called for calm, expressed condolences for Kurniawan's death and ordered a thorough investigation. The protests have prompted schools to let students leave early and banks and businesses to ask employees to work from home. Military personnel have been deployed, while media footage shows protesters clashing with police, burning cars and throwing rocks. The unrest is hitting the markets as well. Indonesian stocks fell as much as 2.3%, the rupiah weakened nearly by 1%. Less than a year into his presidency, Prabowo faces a key test in balancing anti-corruption and job creation promises with growing public frustration over economic pressures and social inequality. Stay tuned for more after the break.
Di dalam setiap berita yang dibawa, konteks amat penting. Kami sentiasa membawakan yang tergempar dan terkini. Pastikan Astro AWANI menjadi pilihan anda, tidak kira di mana sahaja anda berada.
Hundreds of United Nations staff have urged its human rights chief Volker Turk call Israel's war on Gaza an unfolding genocide. In a letter seen by Reuters, more than 500 employees at the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights say the scale and nature of violations meet the legal threshold for genocide. The letter stressed that the UN has a legal and moral duty to denounce such acts, warning that silence undermines the credibility of both the organization and the wider human rights system. It also pointed the UN's failure to prevent the 1994 Rwanda genocide when more than 1 million people were killed. The UN has not labelled events in Gaza as genocide, insisting such rulings belong to international courts. Turk acknowledged staff concerns, noting their moral indignation and frustration at global inaction. He called on employees to remain united despite the adversity and horrors in Gaza. Now, the European Commission has proposed removing duties on imported US industrial goods in exchange for lower US tariffs on European cars. The proposal is the EU's first move to implement a deal struck with the Trump administration last month, under which the bloc accepted a broad 15% tariff to avoid a full-blown trade war. Under the deal, US tariffs on European-built cars were reduced from 27.5% to 15% starting August 1st. In return, the EU will cut some of its duties and increase imports of American energy, one of Washington's main demands during the negotiations. The impact of removing industrial goods tariffs may in fact be modest, with 2/3 already tariff-free. Beyond energy, agriculture was another key area of compromise, with the EU proposing zero tariffs on potatoes, reduced rates for tomatoes, and quotas with zero or low tariffs for pork, cocoa, and pizza. However, beef, poultry, rice, and ethanol were excluded from the concessions. Some products are exempt from the EU's 15% tariff, including aircraft, cork, and generic medicines. However, steel, aluminium, and copper remain subject to a 50% tariff. The UK, France, and Germany have moved to bring back major UN sanctions on Iran over its nuclear program. They've triggered what's called the snapback mechanism, essentially a fast track that allows sanctions to return in 30 days unless diplomacy takes hold.
The three nations, known as E3, warned they would act unless Iran agreed to a diplomatic solution. Tehran called the move provocative, saying it undermines cooperation with the UN's atomic watchdog. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot says diplomacy remains open, while his German counterpart Johann Vadapol urged Iran to fully cooperate with the UN and commit to direct talks with the US. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Tehran is ready for fair negotiations if the West shows goodwill. An Iranian source told Reuters that they would only engage directly with Washington if guaranteed there would be no military strikes during talks. The UN process now runs for 30 days before sanctions, targeting Iran's financial, energy, and defense sectors snap back into place.
The Trump administration has approved an $825 million arms sale to Ukraine to strengthen its defenses. According to the Pentagon, the package includes 3,350 extended-range attack munition missiles with GPS guidance kits and electronic warfare defenses. It also covers support equipment, mission planning software, spare parts, and technical assistance. Ukraine will fund part of the purchase through contributions from NATO allies Denmark, the Netherlands, and Norway, alongside US foreign military financing. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky told European leaders Ukraine needs clear security guarantees as part of a peace plan with Russia. He stressed showing European unity to US President Donald Trump to help end the conflict. Trump has sought to arrange a meeting between Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin, warning further sanctions could follow if progress stalls. But German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said a meeting now appears unlikely. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang says talks with the White House on potential sales of a scaled-down version of his next-generation Blackwell AI chip to China have begun, but he cautions the process will take time. Earlier this month, US President Donald Trump suggested a less capable version of the chip, 30 to 50% weaker than the full model, might be allowed for China.
Huang said the company is also open to Trump's demand for 15% of Blackwell chip sales, stressing that access to China outweighs the conditions. The Chinese AI market is valued at nearly $50 billion to NVIDIA, making access a key priority amid ongoing US-China technology tensions. Previously, Trump suggested allowing sales of a scaled-down version of NVIDIA's restricted Blackwell chip, despite concerns China could exploit American AI technology. Separately, Intel's planned deal to give the U.S. government a 10% stake is still under discussions, according to White House officials. This comes as Intel finance chief David Zinsner confirmed the company received $5.7 billion in cash under the agreement. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the Commerce Department is still finalizing terms. Another official told Reuters that some aspects of the deal, including a $3 billion Department of Defense contract, are not fully in place yet.
Tensions rise between the United States and Venezuela following a major U.S. naval buildup in the southern Caribbean. Washington says the deployment involving 7 warships and a nuclear-powered submarine targets Latin American drug cartels, though the Pentagon does not disclose its exact mission. The White House confirmed U.S. President Donald Trump's readiness to use military force against cartels, with several regional governments backing the move. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro condemned the deployment as hostile, while Caracas lodged a complaint with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Meanwhile, Venezuela's UN envoy, Samuel Moncada, called it propaganda to justify potential U.S. intervention. Amid shifting global dynamics and the escalating US-China trade war, the region finds itself navigating uncertain waters. Chi Fulin, president of the China Institute for Reform and Development, shares what lies ahead for ASEAN-China relations.
So currently, the U.S. reciprocal tariff is obviously shocking the China-ASEAN trade very severely. And now I think there is a strategic choice faced in front of China and ASEAN. And first, as we know, many ASEAN member states has chosen to negotiate it with the U.S. bilaterally. But there is a cooperation mechanism within ASEAN, and there are also mechanisms in RCEP, the ASEAN +1 and ASEAN +3 agreements. And we should form a collective response to the U.S. tariff threat, and we have a more regulated response, more regulated mechanism. And second point is that the trade of ASEAN with the United States accounts for around 15% of the ASEAN's total trade, which is, but ASEAN's trade with China is much higher than its trade with the U.S. And therefore we need to collectively respond to the U.S. challenge with the U.S. market, and by forming a common market in the region between China and ASEAN.
Meanwhile, ASEAN-China Center Secretary General Shi Zhongjun emphasized that China relations with the region are not defined by China-US rivalry, noting that the partnership with member states has continued to grow regardless.
When China and ASEAN established dialogue relations in 1991, the trade volume was 800 million US dollars, 800 million US dollars. Now, by 2024, the trade volume is almost 1 trillion US dollars. So during these years, the US-China relations have ups and downs. So that means that the relationship, the trade relationship between China and ASEAN countries are not closely linked to U.S.-China relationship. Politically speaking, the China and ASEAN countries, they start their dialogue relationship in 1991, then drifted to a strategic relationship, then to comprehensive strategic relationship. These are not really affected by the U.S.-China relations.
Zhongjun added that with ASEAN's strength, it has the capacity to navigate and mediate challenges arising from major power rivalry.
Now that report wraps up AWANI International tonight. Stay tuned for our reports on the rivalries, strategies and the shifts behind the power affairs driving the new global order. Visit international.astroawani.com for more. Be sure to follow our social media accounts as well. I'm Hafiz Marzukhi. Thank you for watching. Good night and have a good weekend.